Hello and welcome to the Aftershow for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We've just stuck a bunch of Outlaws of Thunder Junction information directly into your brain, and we're going to digest a lot of it here with my good friends, Matt Tabak, never been on the show before, and Dave Humphreys. Talk a little bit about what you two did on the set real quick. Dave.
Matt is distracted.
Matt's stunned, even though he knows.
I was the set design lead for the set, and as well, helped finish off the big score.
And
Hello.
Matt, hi.
Hello, hi. My name is Matt. I was the lead editor of Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and dare I say, ye, and if I may.
You may.
Ha.
Absolutely. So we are going to spend about the next hour talking about Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We'll cover some of what you saw in the debut. We're going to reveal some new preview cards. We're going to talk mechanics. We're going to talk promos. We're going to talk the crimes bonus sheet. We're going to reveal every special guest in the set. And we are going to talk about the big score. And if there's time left in all of that, we'll try to answer some questions. But we are just going to dive right into it and start talking mechanics. So first of all, let's kick things off with Spree, because we love going on sprees in this set. This is Final Showdown. So Matt, tell us a bit about the spree mechanic here.
Spree. On Thunder Junction, why have one thing when you can have it all? So spree is a new keyword that is found on modal, instants, and sorceries. So we have a menu of effects that you can select. Spree says you can choose one or more additional costs. When you cast a spell with Spree, you have to pay the mana cost. That's up in the upper right-hand corner like it usually is. And then you choose one or more modes. You can choose a single mode. You can choose on, some of them have 2 modes, some of them have 3. You can choose multiple modes if you want. And for each mode you choose, you pay the associated cost that's listed before it. Add it all up and you get the total cost to cast that spell. Now, like all modal cards, the effects happen in the order listed on the card. So it allows you to really customize kind of the spell that you're casting to fit the situation that you're in. Maybe on Final Showdown, you want it all. You're going to have, your creatures lose all abilities. If you have some, problematic creatures with, maybe some abilities that when they die, you want to get rid of. We want to make sure that you save a creature that you control, give it indestructible, and then destroy all creatures. Maybe in a pinch, you just need a particular creature or creatures to lose all abilities. You're just going to select the first mode. Spree gives you that option. You can choose one mode, all modes. You make the choice.
All right, Dave, talk a little bit. I mean, first of all, this card is, chat's very impressed, like Instant Speed Wrath, very cool. Talk a bit about this card, but also about the place of Spree in this set.
Right, so a lot of the set's trying to pay off like really big turns, a lot of the initial design into this was thought about kind of the heist moments, or like you go on some mission to take care of all this cool stuff in terms of this villainous setting. That's sort of its origins. Not all the cards got necessarily concepted exactly that way, but right, this is part of just mixing and matching stuff is really fun. More generally, you talked about some of the specific cases here on this card that are fun, and why you'd want to do all these things together, but right, that it's just fun to mix and match stuff. This card is not so unlike some other things we've done, like Entwine or Fuse or whatnot, but for one thing, having the cost in the upper right-hand corner, that's kind of a shared cost, gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of mixing and matching these cards to give kind of it makes it more likely and more easy to do kind of the things you want to do, the spectacular, combining all these things. And yeah, these were a lot of fun to design. I hope that is delivered in terms of our players' reception. It was a lot of fun to just mix and match stuff, even cards like Sagas we've had a lot of fun is finding the pieces to come together and letting players combine those into the ways they want, or if you have a ton of mana, you just get to do it all. So.
Yeah. Speaking of having a ton of mana or having a little bit of mana, one of the questions in chat, Matt, is can you cast this and choose none of the abilities? Could you just pay white mana and cast this spell to trigger prowess or something like that?
You can't. So now, as the reminder text hopefully indicates, you do have to choose one or more modes. Anytime you cast a spell with Spree, you are required to choose at least one mode. So digging into kind of the nitty gritty of how the mechanic works, you'll notice a couple things about the frame, and just kind of dive into that real quick. One, the traditional bullet points that you usually see on modal cards have been replaced by plus signs. That's just a little decorative touch that we added in just to kind of remind you that you're adding those additional costs into the mana cost. There's also a little plus sign in the upper right-hand corner of the card by the mana cost. This is just a little visual reminder that you can't cast the card for just that cost. You have to kind of read further. There are some additional costs involved. One thing to keep in mind is no matter what additional costs you're adding to it, the mana value of the spell is always based on solely the mana cost. So Final Showdown's mana value is always 1, no matter how many additional costs you've tacked on.
You're knocking off the questions that chat was asking.
I got you, chat. I got you.
All right, we may come back to this, but I want to hit some more of the mechanics. The next one it's not specifically a mechanic, but it's definitely a feature of the set. So let's see our next preview card, Unfortunate Accident. Here it is, and this is another spree card, but specifically we want to call out Mercenaries, which, Dave, are a feature of this set.
Right, we use these tokens a lot in the set. Yeah, I think I had more or less pitched this idea for what I wanted these tokens to do. This is a card that sort of I enjoyed back in VOW Draft. It was a common in that set. They also gained you life. Really enjoyed it there. Right, so like what we were going for in many ways, like these are the minions, the lackeys, the hench people. Like these are the people that are like kind of helping you get the job done. They're kind of around, a little bit innocuous, but making sure that you can succeed in your heists or your missions. And yeah, they're just kind of a fun part. If the game bogs down, you can use these to help pump up your team. We have some Power 4 Matters cards, so they can help you get to Power 4 to trigger some of those abilities. They kind of just make things happen.
All right, so we'll see a bunch of Mercenaries throughout this set, correct?
Yep.
All right, so now let's move on to our next mechanic, Plot, which we also saw in the debut. So here is Plan the Heist, a story spotlight card. I am going to read this real quick because it's important kind of how this is worded. So it costs 2 blue for a sorcery, surveil 3. If you have no cards in hand, then draw 3 cards, and you can plot it for 3 and a blue. So first, Matt, take us through how this works mechanically for Plot.
All right, to succeed on Thunder Junction, it helps if you have a crew, so we got the Mercenaries, but it helps even more if you have a plan. So Plot is a special action that you can take while a card with Plot is in your hand. There's a cost. You can pay that cost, and this is as a sorcery, so it's during your main phase. Stack is empty, you have priority. Pay that cost and exile the card from your hand. Now it sits in exile, it's face up, everyone can kind of see what's happening. On a future turn, again as a sorcery, you can then cast the plotted card without paying its mana cost. So what this means is you can basically set up a future turn. So for example, Plan the Heist, maybe you've got some cards in hand, so you don't want to cast it right away to take full advantage. But you're going to set it up for a future turn where you'll have no cards in hand. And then you'll be able to take full advantage. You'll be able to surveil 3 and then draw 3 cards. You'll see a lot of cards with Plot have this sort of, maybe you don't want to cast it that turn, you're going to set it up for future turns. Now, on Plan the Heist, the costs, the plot cost and the mana costs are very similar. They're both, 4 mana. That's not going to be the case on all cards with Plot. Sometimes you'll be offered a savings. Sometimes it's actually more to plot it, and you'll see those designs. It'll make a lot more sense once you see it.
Let's put another example up here before Dave talks about this place in the set. So Slick Shot Lock Picker here. This is another one that has Plot the same. When Slick Shot Lock Picker, I did it, enters the battlefield, a target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost, so like Snapcaster Rogue. So Dave, talk a little bit more about Plot in this set and the design of this mechanic.
Yeah, I loved Plot as a designer. It's really, again, it's really subtle at first. So it's like, all right, why don't I just want to get this 2/3 on the battlefield and start attacking and blocking? Again, this plays again into like setting up big turns. This is like we have, as you'll see later, like rewards for casting multiple cards in a turn.
In fact, I think our next preview card shows that.
Right, but
let's
yeah,
show one of the rewards
yeah.
too. Yep.
Right. So so this is the blue-red color pair in for draft and limited is about casting two or more spells in a turn, and that you're getting paid off by making this bigger, drawing more cards. That's hopefully that extra cards helping you do this again. But so like on the previous card then. So it helps, like, if you play a Snapcaster Mage, like, if you just cast it for 3, you're not going to have much mana left over to flash back a card, right? You'd have to pay a 1 or 2 mana card, probably, or whatever. Whereas if you plot it, then, like, on a subsequent turn, you're paying it for free, so you have all your mana ready to cast whatever, like, hopefully the biggest card is instant or sorcery that's already in your graveyard. So there's just a ton of subtle things that we can do to reward you for getting pieces to come together. Like, we have creatures with plot where, you can play the creature while your opponent's tapped out and like get your cards going. You can play around, your opponent has up some counter spells. You can play around that by plotting on that turn so they don't get to use their counter spell or their removal that they have. Like, oh, they're clearly sitting on something, like I'm going to plot and be able to like get all my stuff working together on a future turn.
Yeah. And let's see, one more preview card in the plot space. Here is Make Your Own Luck. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may exile a non-land card from among them. If you do, it becomes plotted.
Yeah, interestingly, the plot special action is not the only way that a card can become plotted. So here, Make Your Own Luck. You can directly put a card into exile. It becomes plotted. And then you can cast it as a sorcery, again, on a future turn. So you can't immediately cast that card the same turn that you've made your own luck. You have to wait till a future turn. But this sets you up for those, like Dave said, explosive turns down the road. You can really set up your future plays and hit your opponent when they're maybe not least expecting it, because it is face up. They can see what's coming, but they may not be able to do anything about it.
Yep.
And cards like this one are the reason that we have you only casting them as a sorcery. Like most all the cards with plot, you'd be playing as a sorcery anyways, but like we didn't like, oh, you hit a counter spell and have a free counter spell looming over the game like for the rest of the time. So like that's the main reason that's restrictions there. Mostly that is already would have been the case for the cards that had plot anyways.
Yeah. And one question I have seen pop up, we do say as a sorcery in the reminder text here. That's just sort of a timing note. That doesn't mean that the card that you are casting becomes a sorcery or anything like that. That just means during your turn, during your main phase, when the stack is empty. It just means those timing rules. You see this on activated abilities that say activate only as a sorcery. That has nothing to do with the actual card type other than the timing rules associated with it. So just to clear that up.
All right, for people already trying to mess with this and break these cards, are there any ways to break the timing rules with something like the Ley Line of Anticipation or Vedalken Orient?
No, none whatsoever. Magic is famous for having no way to break its own rules.
That's sarcasm if you don't
We have
speak
clearly
Tabak.
anticipated every design, past, present, and future. I have full confidence that, no. So to answer that specific question, cards that let you cast sorceries at weird times, like as though it had flash or something, don't interact with the as a sorcery timing rules.
Okay.
So that specific interaction doesn't work. We're pretty confident that those timing rules are foolproof, and we haven't made anything that messes with them yet. Earmuffs. So as long as we don't make any cards that specifically address those timing rules, and we haven't yet, I think we're good. You can listen again.
All right. Okay, let's move on to another mechanical feature of the set. We are in a Western theme, and so of course there are going to be deserts, and we have a full cycle of them here, one for each color pair. So those are the new dual land deserts. And then we are going to have a bunch of cards that interact with deserts. Now this isn't a mechanic so much as it is a, I don't know what you call it, Dave, a feature or...
I mean, it's a mechanic. It's not like a keyword mechanic, but yeah, I mean, deserts, it felt like it would be a miss for us not to do deserts. I mean, yeah, I am very well known for forcing gain life dual lands into all my sets, so I figured I'd mix it up with lands that are a little more evil-minded, and yeah, it felt more like deserts.
And so with those, there are cards that pay off having deserts, like Colossal Rattleworm. So Dave, talk about this card and kind of how you seeded deserts throughout the set.
Right, so deserts is not a huge theme here. We definitely wanted there to be little payoffs here and there. Right, it's not quite as big as like say snow in Kaldheim or anything like that. But right, we want it is fun to prioritize drafting deserts. Say it's fun to pay off people who have desert decks already like sitting around and are eager to add those to their constructed decks or their commander decks. Right, so this is just trying to give you a really nice, I mean, it's a pretty big, huge creature. If you have a desert as flash, that's actually like pretty big deal to play around control decks or removal or whatnot. We don't go heavily into a graveyard theme, but we do know that deserts in the past have tied a little bit or cared about deserts in your graveyard. So this card, we felt it would be nice, like, oh, like if this is getting milled or it's been killed, you're also, again, there's a little bit of a graveyard theme to pay off some of the stuff that we've already seen with deserts. And yeah, this just all around value. We're always like, we already at this point had like Shieldred in mind, where it's like, gotta make sure everything matches up well against Shieldred and things like that.
All right, and let's see a desert card that's meant for limited play. So here's Cat Tarantula. Nailed it.
You're doing really well with these card names.
I really am. I know. Thank you.
This is very impressive.
This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control the desert. So it goes from a 6 mana 6/5 to a 5 mana 6/5. So Dave, talk about desert payoffs at lower rarities.
Right. So yeah. So across, like even just like at common, right? We have cards that are caring about this that like you changes the pick orders of how highly you value deserts. So you'll see some other reasons why you will value deserts pretty soon here. But yeah, just. Right, it's fun to have cards that are changing your evaluations of cards and how important it is to pick up various cards. This is a pretty solid creature for limited, and it's real, pretty meaningful to get it out a turn earlier. I will say, like, right, in terms of not to give away too much coming up here, but right, like you don't want to commit crimes against this thing. This thing's pretty mean, but it does speak to a little bit of the balance where like. Right, there's a lot of removal and rewards for using removal, so we also wanted to make sure, like, if you're spending 5 mana to cast this and your opponent were just to get rid of it, you'd be a little bit sad. So, like, we made sure that there's some payoffs for them just going after the stuff that you're investing a lot of mana into.
Yeah, and we don't have anyone from the world building team on this episode, unfortunately, but I do have to say that the cactus folk and the cactus animals are just delightful.
It's a giant walking cactus.
Yeah. Which is
I'm not on the world building team. I don't know if you could tell.
I can tell. Thank
you. Big walking cactus. Don't touch it, because it'll make you draw cards.
Yeah.
Or something.
Something. There's a reason.
Magic.
Magic. Next up, let's talk about Outlaws. So we have a good friend of ours from the past, Vile Smasher, is here, and this time as a gleeful grenadier. Is going to deal 1 damage to an opponent whenever an outlaw enters the battlefield. Matt, what is an outlaw?
An outlaw is a new rules term. It is a collective term for assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks, aka friends of mine. So this is a collective term for these 5 creature types, and you're going to see outlaw used on several cards in the set, and you're going to see it used in one of 2 ways. You're going to see it used as a noun whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield here on Vile Smasher, and that just means usually a creature with that creature type. So any creature, whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield, is short for whenever another assassin enters the battlefield, or a mercenary, or a pirate, or a rogue, or a warlock. Any permanent with any one or more of those creature types. You're also going to see outlaw used as an adjective to talk about cards not on the battlefield, such as an outlaw spell or outlaw card in your graveyard, that kind of thing. So it's a new rules term, the kind of an umbrella term that groups those 5 very attractive creature types.
Yeah. Dave, talk about outlaws in this set.
Right, so outlaws were, we wanted to have sort of a typal thing to care about. We've done some batching in the past. This was a new attempt at batching where like, all right, well, right, what is this group of things that we want to care about that's going to be backwards compatible, forwards compatible, right? Like people will already have right cards with these subtypes. We can make this matter. You'll do your searches on your various card search engines to like, all right, what are all the cool things that I can put together in a deck that are going to feel like the right vibe here for like, right? Like we're wanting you to embrace your villainous side here to some extent. And it felt like this was a pretty fun thing to latch onto, right? That this suite of creature subtypes was a good match of just like different types, different colors, different warlocks in there, so we could kind of have spellcasters and that we could keep paying this off down the road, and that there was plenty of stuff to work with it beforehand. And I should note, this is also we haven't really spoken too much directly to it, but this is a world where everyone's coming in through the Omen Pass, and so I think Vile Smasher, I believe, is from Tarkir, and a lot of the fun of this set is bringing in familiar characters as well as introducing new ones, but that this is a lot of the more potentially villainous or mischievous characters have arrived here to find and prosper in this setting.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next mechanic, Saddle. So here we have Quilled Charger, that whenever Quilled Charger attacks, while saddled, gets +1/+2 and gains Menace until end of turn. We also saw Saddle on the Gitrog Ravenous Ride in the debut. So Matt, quick overview of how Saddle works.
All right, so Saddle is an activated ability that says it has a number. In this case, Quill Charger has Saddle 2. Tap any number of other creatures you control. Creatures can't ride themselves. I'll let you make your own joke there. Tap any number of other creatures you control with power 2 or more, or whatever that number is, or more, and that creature becomes saddled until end of turn. Now you can activate the Saddle ability, again, only as a sorcery, so during your main phase, so not inside of combat, during your main phase only, when the stack is empty and you have priority. Now every creature with Saddle will have another ability that tells you what the advantage is for it being saddled. A lot of creatures have a basic triggered ability that say whenever this creature attacks while saddled, it'll get some bonus. For example, Quilled Charger gets +1/+2 and gains Menace until end of turn. Most common creatures, even uncommon, will have just a simple triggered ability that gives you a bonus for attacking while saddling. So tap some creatures to saddle it, attack with the mount, it gets bigger, or some sort of combat bonus. Some creatures have more complex, more advantageous abilities, like the Gitrog Ravenous Ride. Saddle 1. Now the Gitrog doesn't really appreciate being saddled. It eats its rider, but you're in a great place to benefit from it.
All right, Dave, talk about the development of Saddle.
Right, so clearly we had a lot of fun with what you would saddle. I mean, I'm surprised, Tabak, you didn't call out some.
I will never be saddled again.
But yeah, we have a lot of goofy things. You got to make sure you use a good saddle on the porcupine, right? You got to be pretty brave to ride the Gitrog. But in general, with the mechanic, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out, what most made sense. This is sort of a trope or type of card that people have been eager to see and wanted to see. We landed in trying to make it behave a little bit like vehicles, right? In many ways, these are like vehicles, but they're creatures to begin with, right? There's kind of the floor of the power level of these cards as well. You already have a creature that you can start attacking with. If you don't have anybody else around to saddle it, it's still a creature. It can still get stuff done. So it's a lot easier still to There are fewer moments of frustration, and yet you can reap the rewards in similar ways to vehicles if you do have someone around to saddle. And then, we mentioned the sorcery restriction. A lot of that it turned out to just be gameplay where, in terms of the cards we wanted to make, it was a little bit tricky where, oh, you don't block, after you don't block, I saddle it, and things like that, where there are some designs that, say, wanted to trigger off a combat damage or whatever, where it made more sense to have that be a difference from crewing a vehicle, to have it be at sorcery speed, and then...
Plus, really, if I send a horse after my opponent, and the horse is charging my opponent, and they don't block, jumping on the horse after it's already, down the field, charging my opponent, saddling it at that point, just doesn't make any sense.
Didn't really make sense. Also, I should say, digital is a lot, they're getting rid of all the priority passes for, not, oh, you want to saddle at times or it wouldn't matter. So, digital is, a lot smoother by switching to sorcery. So.
Right. It's your end step. Would you like to saddle? No. It's upkeep. Would you like to? No. Stop it. No.
All right, let's move on to a big feature of the set, one we've talked about in a number of places already. But of course, we're talking about crimes, committing crimes, and all the rewards that come with those. Here is Rattleback Apothecary, an uncommon that just says, when you commit a crime, I mean, there's other text, but target creature you control gains your choice of menace or lifelink until end of turn. So, Matt, give us, we talked about crimes at the first look, but give everyone a reminder of what it means to commit a crime in the world of Magic the Gathering.
Well, usually it means profit. So a crime is anytime you cast a spell, activate an ability, or put a triggered ability on the stack that targets an opponent, a permanent they control, a spell they control, an ability they control, or a card in their graveyard. One or more of any of those things, you have committed a crime. I should note, I will stress this every opportunity I get, committing a crime is a game action only. Please limit it to that. And yes, there are some very funny examples of previous cards with hilarious names that should be crimes that aren't. Only ones that target opponents, things they control, or cards in their graveyards are considered the game action of crime.
Now, Dave, Mark Rosewater talked a bit about designing some mechanics around just getting cool words on the cards. Like, you know, you maybe start with, we want to say commit a crime, what does it do? So talk a little bit about the development of this mechanic.
Right, I forget exactly when we latched onto it, but yeah, we like whenever you commit a crime, like that phrase really resonated with people. Like whenever we did play test, people are like, "Oh, that's like really cool, funny." Like yeah, like and it was just it was so easy then to look back through past cards. I mean, there were we spent a lot of time looking at how about damaging something should be a crime, like surely Wrath of God or type the sweepers should be crimes, and there gotta be in a lot of corner cases of how many crimes were created if like I dealt 3 damage to it and then it died, and like just targeting. I felt like this really like I mess with you or your stuff, right? Tabak gave the very rulesy explanation, but it's like
that's what they pay me for. It's literally why I'm here.
You're covering all the corner cases, but I also want people to appreciate it's not really like every card in the set. If it has the word target and you use it on your opponent or their stuff, it's a crime, right? It's actually not super complicated.
It's really not.
Yeah.
My only requirement was that the card crime was a crime.
Yeah.
I was happy with that.
And it is.
There are also a few cards that don't have the word target, like auras that you might put on your opponent's stuff that
right.
are crimes. Even
Auras target, that's important to note. So you can definitely commit crimes that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just people really latched onto it. It like again, it doesn't cover every case that people would want to be a crime. It ends up with silly things where like, haha, it's funny that that's a crime. Right? I mean, I put together pretty much the whole bonus sheet from scratch, and like looking through all of Magic's history for cards that had like kind of crimey sounding names or things that would like end up like sounding cool for that treatment was really fun. And like I should note too, right? Like there are a few cards in Magic's history that made it a little bit, things got a little bit out of control. If you could like Soltari Gorilla and cards like that had like a 0 colon.
Yeah.
So for the most part, at first I was thinking maybe I'll convince some rules folk to errata those cards. By the end of like play testing, we realized we didn't really want too much nonsense going on with like repeated crimes like that. The card we actually just saw, like in some senses, like, well, you could give your whole team menace and lifelink. That's pretty cool. But like we didn't want there to be just like infinite combos where like some of the old cards the way they've been errated and changed. So rather than like that meant that we could give you bigger effects and mostly reward you for doing crimes once a turn rather than worry about kind of the cases where somebody's going to like crime and then we have to put really weak effects on the cards. So we went the direction that you know, I know lots of you don't like it, but we do have like a number of cards that are only once a turn or effectively only once a turn.
Yep.
Magic, we don't want infinite combos.
Yeah, right.
You know, more infinite combos.
Chat and the internet as a whole, by the way, since we started talking about crimes, has had a field day like calling out cards that are crimes that they seem nice, but they're crimes.
Giant growth can be a crime.
Giant growth can be a crime. Yep. Ancestral recall can be a crime. It's a crime if you use it that way. Anyway.
The cool thing is, for the most part, the cards in the set that reward you for crimes, most of the time, when you're committing crimes, it's because you're destroying your opponent's stuff.
Yeah.
Which is inherently good anyway, and then you get rewards on top of it.
Yeah.
So these cards that reward crimes are just kind of a feel-good all around.
Just for everybody.
As-
Everybody's
as-
feeling good.
If you're on Thunder Junction, that's what crime is.
And then I
It's
will
feel good all around.
I mean, I will like targeting your opponent is good interactive fun gameplay. Right?
Yeah.
That is one of the reasons of all of the options I latched onto it. In Constructed we'll get criticisms that like the two decks are kind of like ships passing in the night and that they're each doing their own thing. You're not really interacting. So like in many ways, like this just also felt like an exciting place to all right, like this really does reward interactive magic, and we can make cards that reward interactive magic. I mean, it's a little tricky because then like draft and limited, that's not the case. Like draft and limited, you're often playing like your non-creature cards or like targeting your opponent's stuff anyways in terms of like cards you tend to priority. So there was all sorts of different challenges where I like during playtesting I'd like keep looking back, like making sure are you still playing the cards that are not crimes, and like making sure that we had fun build-arounds and things that were not just like this format couldn't just be all about crimes and draft, or that would not be fun either. So.
All right, let's move on to a few more preview cards. We've been talking pretty seriously about mechanics and stuff. Let's just show some cute cards.
More cards.
We got Armored Armadillo. So we got some critters in Thunder Junction.
Critters.
This is our little buddy Armored Armadillo. Dave, anything you want to share about our little armadillo buddy?
I mean, yeah, we got a lot of cute stuff. It was fun. I mean, again, as someone who grew up in like San Diego, and like it's fun to see some of the flora and fauna from irrigated desert land, and stuff that we haven't always played up as much. I don't have a whole lot to say here other than they're fun critters.
A lot of armadillos roaming around San Diego there?
No, not really. But I'd go on road trips,
Right.
explore.
Drive outside the city every once in a while.
Yeah, well, if you, yeah.
And then a favorite in this set, Holy Cow. 2 and white, 2/2, flying flash. When Holy Cow enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. It's an Ox Angel. Yeah, this card's great.
Yeah,
this
is again in terms of playtesting. This card got called out so many times as like this is the greatest, the funniest, and a lot of them were playtesting it when it didn't have art or anything, and then of course it comes out as like, oh, it's actually this really cool looking creature. So it's fun. And again, like in terms of playing, even the mechanics, there's subtle stuff here, but the fact that it has flash, so it's like, oh no, holy cow, like it just it tied the mechanics in.
You would think there'd be some warning when this thing shows up, but no, it just appears.
Yep. Yell this out at your pre-release. You've been given permission. Lots of Holy Cows at the pre-release. All right, let's now move on to talking about some of the promos you can get with Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We're going to begin with the, what's that?
Moving on?
Yes, moving on. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Thanks.
I'm here for you.
Yeah, you are. The promo pack cards. So these are cards you can get at your local game store. All powerful uncommons. Here are 5 of them. Dave, we've already seen Make Your Own Luck, but Dave, talk a little bit about these cards.
Yeah, they're so small on the screen. The first one I should note, it looks at your top cards for a mount or a plains, not to be confused with a mountain or a plains. We were actually kind of worried about this through a lot of development.
Mount and mountain are 2 separate words. I believe we templated this. We put in mount creature just to make super clear that you wouldn't confuse those 2 words.
Right, but our first card here is, it's just rewarding you for like, we like, I mean, I can get into some of the color pairs as we go through these, but like green-white is largely about mounts, so like, right, again, the more mounts you put in your deck, the happier you're gonna be with this card, the more likely you're to kind of just get a extra free card. Not to be confused with free to cast, but yeah, so it's incentivizing you for playing a bunch of mounts and being happy about mounts in your deck. And then we got, Scorching Shot, which, pretty much, this is not necessarily about limited or anything, but it's just like, here's a good solid removal card. I talked about Shieldred earlier.
Yep.
It's probably not a coincidence that this card kills Shieldred. We already have some good ways to do 5 if you have a bunch of attacking creatures in Standard, for example, but maybe not so much if you're more of a controlling deck. And then we got, I don't know exactly I don't know why he's honest exactly, to be honest.
He's so honest. He looks honest, doesn't he?
I don't know.
Because he gives the fairest deals. He's honest Rutstein. What possible reason would you have to mistrust him?
So yeah, green-black, as I often do, yeah, it has a bit of a creatures in graveyard theme, rewarding you for creature cards in your graveyard. Right, this is very much the signpost for that. I think we have like two gold, pretty much signposts for all the color pairs. He is, getting a creature back from your graveyard. If you've milled it there, it's died, got in there some other way. And then, he's letting you cast creature spells for less, because again, it's not just a graveyard color pair, it's about like specifically creature cards in your graveyard and having a lot of creatures in your deck. So pretty good value all around for the, grave digger type of variants.
Absolutely.
We talked about make your own luck. This card, actually, I didn't say it earlier, this card was pretty contentious. This was one of my pet cards. It's like, I think we can do this. And a lot of people are like, I don't know. But it's got some big dreams there. Plot. Green-blue is very much about plot as a color pair. Black-white is a pretty good, I give up, right, like kind of a bone splinter is, I give up a creature and I get rid of one of your creatures, and then instead of being left with a card in your graveyard, you're left with a pretty reasonable creature here. So, the black-white color pair is a bit about attrition and having kind of like creatures that like maybe enter the battlefield and draw a card, or enter the battlefield and make your opponent discard a card, or, dies, triggers, and things like that, where once they're on the battlefield, they're kind of expendable, and it kind of also plays into some of the kind of the tropes of the setting, right? Like, you don't, that guy, we don't need him so much on this anymore.
And these promo cards, and can we also put up I think we have the main set versions, maybe not. There we are. So the promo versions of these cards can be found in promo packs at your local game store. Talk to your local game store about them. Often they're given out through things like events or tournaments, or just playing Magic in the store. So check with your local game store. Another promo we have is the bundle promo. So if you purchase a bundle, so here we have the regular main set version, the extended version, and then if you purchase a bundle, you will get that version with the alternate art on the right. And Dave, there is a lot going on here with the key to the vault, which is a significant story piece. If you haven't read yesterday's story, I definitely recommend checking it out. But Dave, talk to us about this card.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much just, I mean, we could have put many things on this, but we wanted this to be exciting. It was a pretty big moment, right? Like we at least in this show, have not talked a ton about it, but the Oko's big heist is all about finding this Fomari vault, and this is the key to the vault, and we wanted this to be a pretty significant card in the main set, so that if you equip this to a creature and it kind of connects with your opponent, then you're getting to look at some cards depending on how much damage you did, better on bigger creatures, but pretty much, and it gives you a chance to play one of those cards without paying its mana cost. Sort of a recurring theme in ways, but it's kind of a fun, exciting, big dreams. Like again, a lot of the sets about big dreams, and this again can contribute to some really big turns potentially. And it's just like a fun design we had.
Absolutely. All right, next up, we're going to reveal 5 rares altogether. So some I've seen expect these, but we've got the Fast Lands, Spire Bluff, Canal, and Friends. We've got those main set versions on the top, and then these also come in borderless extended art versions. Dave, talk about these in the set.
Yeah, well, these are popular lands. Like a lot of including these here was making sure that, for standard in particular, I mean, people love these in various formats, but for standard in particular, we wanted to make sure we balanced out the mana bases so that allied colors didn't have like a distinct advantage over enemy colors in terms of deck building choices. Like what people are maybe perhaps tired of, say, Thran Portal or whatever some very painful lands you might have had to choose instead of these. But these are very popular, well-established lands that are especially good in fast decks, but a variety of decks.
And also very cool, they form a panorama.
Yeah, as I will point out, the art on those lands on the bottom do look like they do that.
They do that, which is very cool. So you can collect all 5, put them right next to each other, and then you get that panorama of a Thunder Junction version of a train. Very cool. All right, now let's move on to the crimes bonus sheet. So before we start revealing cards from that, Dave, will you talk a little bit about what is the crimes bonus sheet?
Right. So effectively, it's very similar to what we've seen for many sets now, like Brothers War, March of the Machine. Right. It's
Wilds of Eldraine.
Right. Like so. Yeah.
Yep.
It's cool. We keep doing it because we think you like it, and I think it's really cool.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Right. So it was fun for this one where like typically in all those sets we just named, there was a very like kind of concrete, specific theme that was built around a card type. Right. This was very fun because we tied it into like a mechanic in the set. So right, it's not all enchantments. It's not all artifacts. It's like, right, and it was very flavor driven. Like I think I maybe said before, but like I was looking for a lot of words. Like words mattered a lot. Like what like. When I first started, we hadn't necessarily settled on like the treatment of the card frames and stuff and how it would appear as like a newspaper and things like that. But I knew I wanted to like, it needed to match the vibe. I didn't want to have like, oh, really kind, nice things happening or whatever, right? Like right, just, and I wanted it to like, all of these cards, again, all these cards can be crimes, and I wanted them to like, they all needed a target, but I didn't want giant growth where like, right, like that's not the point of why you play giant growth. Like I didn't want it. Oh, like in corner cases, it's a crime. I wanted it like this is the main function of the card. This is why people play the card. And right again, does it have a fun name for the setting? And it was. I will say like it was a little tricky because some colors are a lot better at crimes than others. Like green, not so good at crimes. It was a little hard finding enough green cards. Green tends not to do really mean things to other people and their things, whereas a lot of the other colors, like black and blue and red, and like white a little bit, especially with like at least affecting creatures. But it was, it's really fun. I think the flavor carries it. I love like the art is really like cool and stylish. So
yeah,
words mattered a lot.
Word
chat my heart.
And before we show off, we're going to show off 3 cards from the crime bonus sheet here. Matt, legality on the crimes bonus sheet
So
cards?
crimes bonus sheet are not standard legal. These basically, they're all reprints, so they're legal in whatever format they were previously legal in.
Yep. And you'll get 1 in every pack.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's a slot in play boosters that contains one of these crimes. So let's take a look at the preview cards we have. First up, we have Path to Exile. So, Dave, this is one of those white crimes.
Yeah. So, right. I mean, our audience probably very much knows this card, but white. Like certainly one of the ways they commit crimes is like getting rid of pesky creatures. This sort of the concept that we went here with again happened. Like creative certainly went some other directions in terms of right. Like this doesn't speak exactly as much to like a crime or a villainous thing, but like is very nicely put in terms of like the setting of like a Western frontier setting. This is like a pretty cool take on it. I will say like as we'll get to these, I may as well say now like in terms of the selection on these, like the higher rarity cards, very much like these are like I'm mostly selecting cards like people want to own these cards, people want to collect these cards, people are excited to have cards with new treatments. Like when I was selecting like the rares and mythics. Whereas the uncommons, I very much more tried, like, I want to, like, these are going to be fun and cool and draft and sealed and, like, right, these are going to really add to the play experience for the lower rarity cards and just kind of be fun cards. But, the higher rarity cards, there was a lot more focus on the feel and, like, are people going to really want to own these cards?
And these are, of course, dispatches from the Prosperity Post. And where space allowed, we crafted, hopefully, some amusing headlines and bring you inside the world of Thunder Junction.
Yeah, that flavor text at the bottom is in my opinion, one of the better features of these cards. There's some pretty good ones that we'll see. Let's take a look at our next crime, Dust Bowl. This is a wild one to see.
So this is why I had to give this preface before we went to this slide. So some of these are a bit pet cards. Like I mean, Dust Bowl is just.
I love Dust Bowl.
Dust Bowl as a name is like so perfect here.
Yeah.
It is not. I wouldn't put this up there as one of the most net fun cards we've ever made. But it's right. It's a card that we know people want to get more copies of. I mean, it's cool. It commits repeated crimes. You get payback if somebody's deserted you a bunch of time. You can get some payback on those deserts. But yeah, it's just, again, this was mostly flavor driven. But yeah, it's a fun card. Not adding a whole lot to limited, I don't think.
Yeah, the flavor text is great though. Dust has no time to settle as new dust arrives. All right, and then I think the one that we're going to get the bigger reaction from, we've got Grindstone, which also repeatedly commits some crimes here. So there's the breaking news, and then there's also the breaking news textured foil. So we do have, I believe, a video of some of these treatments, but first talk a little bit, Dave, about Grindstone here.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say here. I mean, again, milling something that comes up. This is a pretty cool take on milling. It's like repeated crimes. I mean, I didn't go into it a lot. Like we expect crimes to happen a lot. The cards are balanced off of crimes happening every turn. We mostly tried to avoid crimes happening like kind of completely trivially free every turn. Like you'll see like, right, like there's a common that like kind of one and tap every turn commit a crime, but we wanted there to be some decision making in committing a crime, as there I think should be probably. Yeah, this is just a fun, cool card. You can, again, this is something that can come up in limited where you can be trying to mill out an opponent where you otherwise might not be something that you're routinely doing with this set.
All right, now we call out that textured foil there. It doesn't, quite evoke the actual look and feel of that card. So we've got a video here that can show off some of the textured foils and how that's going to look. We'll just let that, there it is. Get that nice little sheen. Let's run that, at least one more time. Take a look at it.
There's much more texture in the video there.
Yeah. We'll also, these three cards shown off like this will also be included in the Collecting Outlaws of Thunder Junction article that will go up on WeeklyMTG at the end of this stream. So if you want to see those again, you can definitely check that out.
You have to also call out Oko there. Oko.
Yep.
Yeah.
Original Oko. And original Oko is on the crimes bonus sheet, as is Mana Drain. The crimes bonus sheet is pretty exciting.
Oko is such a trickster, he recruited himself to be in his own gang.
He's into himself for, good reason. Let's talk special guests next. So special guests is a program we launched last year where we have 10 reprints that make appearances on the list. And the list is a slot you will get in, I believe in this set it's approximately 1 in every 5 packs will show up. The list in this set is a bit unique. We have the 10 special guest cards, and then we also have the big score, and that is the entirety of the list. We'll talk a little bit more about the big score in a moment. But we saw Stoneforge Mystic in the debut video running into the after show. So yay, cool, great, Stoneforge Mystic. Let's take a look. We're going to show off the rest of the special guests, the other 9. And we'll just hear from Dave on their place in here. So we've got Brazen Borrower, Port Razor, and Desert, which is land desert.
Yeah, so this is something that usually, like these cards usually get selected by someone sort of outside my team. These are very much flavor driven, as you can guess from some of the examples here. Right, I mean, I will note with the bonus sheet, I opted not to rely on creatures. Just it didn't feel quite right in terms of the flavor that we were going for. So, but Brazen Borrower is kind of like the perfect example of what I would have put on the bonus sheet if I felt like it matched up with the headlines better and stuff. Right, so these are very flavor driven. Again, mostly cards that people want to own. The cards that we think will translate well into these sorts of treatments in this particular frontier setting. Yeah,
and as a note, Chad's pointing out these are. It's weird to have Desert Mythic, but all the special guests have the Mythic symbol. And that symbol is a separate set symbol for all special guests that we do in all sets. They're also numbered sequentially from, again, all the special guests that we do in all the sets. Let's see the next 3 here. We've got Prismatic Vista, Morbid Opportunist, and Classic Mystic Snake. Anything to add on these, Dave?
No, I mean, yeah. Again, you can hopefully see like a snake and things, things that just sort of make sense. Cards that basically the person that was choosing these felt like, oh, these would make for a cool concept in these settings. I mean, these are pretty fun, popular cards in Commander and other places, and just cards we wanted to have more options available for players to use.
It's a historically powerful snake that commits crimes. What more do you need?
And then finally, for our special guests, we've got Desertion, Scape Shift with gorgeous art. I mean, they all have gorgeous art, but that Scape Shift speaks to me. And Notion Thief. You gotta have Notion Thief in this set.
Yeah, the art on that's pretty cool. Again, in terms of concepts and setting. People really like putting desert in things, whether it's names or otherwise.
Yeah, it's unclear whether Desertion was a purposeful inclusion or whether they just typed desert, it came up, and they just went, okay, fine.
Yep, so again, all of these are special guests. They are found in the slot, the list, which is found, I believe, in approximately 1 in every 5 packs in this set. All right, moving on from special guests, as I noted, the big score is also on the list. So the big score, we did talk about this in a show a few weeks back on what the big score was, how it was formerly an epilogue set, and then we ended up moving it into this. So Dave, can you talk about sort of the big score as a whole real quick?
Right. So yeah, I mean, originally, like again, given that it started as an epilogue product, this was meant to be like kind of the real payoff of again, Oko's gang's trying to open the vault. Like, what's in the vault, right? Like, why go through all this effort? What's in it? It must have really cool stuff. Some of that you've gotten a hint of from the story, and we haven't fully paid that off in the story. But yeah, it's It's the Fomori had left all these hopefully really powerful things here, and what does that mean, and what could be in it, and we played a lot off the idea of we're gonna look at iconic artifacts from Magic's past, and maybe there are links there, did some of these ideas originate from the Fomori or kind of vice versa, and it just got to play around in the space of what are some cool cards that we can call back to. And then you'll see a lot of, not everything is an artifact. A lot of the cards were also meant to be you saw sort of at the end of the debut video, there's a little bit more going on, and some of the past scenes, some strings were being pulled by some forces maybe you didn't realize, and trying to revisit, you'll see some of the cards are from some of the planes that we've been to recently, and kind of revisiting maybe what had been going on in some of the past sets that we've done. So it's a kind of a mix of that, and just really trying to pay off what's the cool stuff in the vault, and there is some cool stuff in the vault.
There is some cool stuff.
And I should call Adam Prozac. I should call out did a lot of the work on this. He sort of did what amounted to a vision design for the big score, and I ended up doing a lot of the polish on the set. So.
Yeah. For those now, Dave did mention in there the story. These are very closely tied with the story and the epilogue to the main story. So yesterday the main story finished. Next week, in concert with the time where we're doing the previews for the big score, we will also have those epilogue stories on dailymtg.com, so you'll be able to read a little bit about what happened.
Oh, thank goodness. I have so many questions after yesterday.
Yeah. There are.
I have no idea what's going on.
You and the rest of the internet.
I have no idea.
Because of our
because what's his face came in and grabbed the thing and then did the thing,
right?
And then the two of the other people did the other thing, and then there was the Blinky, and I have no idea. Okay, good. Woo!
All right, so yes, so for people who love the story, I believe it's 2 more episodes talking about what happens at the end of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. So let's get to a couple more preview cards. We've got Oltec Matter Weaver. So we've got a number of versions of this. So Oltec Matter Weaver, there is a promo, a regular, a vault treatment, and extended art. So let's talk real quickly before we talk about what this card does and all that sort of stuff with Dave. The promos. So the regular version will be found on the big score, but cards on the big score, some of them have that vault treatment there, which can be found in collector boosters. Same with extended art. That promo there is for an in-store promotion called Get the Gang Together. So that'll be one of the cards available through that in-store promotion, and we'll be sharing more information on that on the website, I believe, at the conclusion of this stream. So, okay, now let's get back to this card specifically. So this is one of those not an artifact cards that you were talking about, Dave.
Right, yeah. Here we're revisiting, a creature and a concept from, a recent set that we were working on, right, that I will say, like, this, one of the themes that you'll see through the big score is a focus on artifact tokens. That was one of the things that we latched onto as sort of a fun space to be playing with, right? That, like, this card, right? Well, first of all, whenever you cast a creature spell, you can get a 1/1 artifact creature token. That's, like, cool. And then, right beyond that, like, it has a bit of a almost like populate thing where, like, well, 1/1s are cool, but you can also make copies of other artifact tokens that you might have around. And that's a theme that you'll see a bit around, and we play around with that, and you'll see it again. I think even on our next card.
Was there just a person in the vault? Was this person just chilling?
You gotta read the story. This person, I don't believe this person was chilling in the vault.
Okay.
There was something
Does
else.
the vault-
There was
someone else chilling in the vault. If you read the
It is
story.
not unheard of for a live being to be.
Does the vault have, like, restaurants and, like, sleeping
Maybe, I don't
quarters?
know.
I don't. Okay.
Next
Next
like
week.
I said, we'll have
Next
world
week.
building people on
Okay.
next time. Of note, a couple people asked, this is standard legal. All cards from the big score are standard legal. Next up, we have transmutation font. So we have, again, this is also part of that same Get the Gang Together promotion. So it also has the regular version, the vault treatment version, which again, some of the big score cards have, and then the extended art version. So Dave, talk to us about transmutation font.
Right. So speaking of recent sets and artifact tokens, right? Yeah, we got blood and clues and food, things you've encountered recently before. Right, tying into that, like, your last card could be making some of those. It could also, I think we saw from the debut video, some, like, big dinosaur artifact tokens, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we also tried to make some big dreams with all of this sort of stuff. And if you can get three different artifact tokens effectively, you can sack them all and go get something from your deck that's pretty exciting, hopefully, and put it on the battlefield.
Yeah. All right. We have one more card. Now that's all our new cards, but we would be remiss if we didn't at least talk about the ending of the debut video where, spoiler alert, everyone, if you haven't read the story, it's a bit of a spoiler, but if you watched the debut, you already saw it.
Is it a spoiler at this point, really?
It depends on when you tuned in. People tune in, they tune out. But let's take a look.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the stream.
Let's take a look at this bombshell that we dropped. This was in the story that was posted yesterday. Not the card, but the fact that Jace is alive and, well, might be overstating it. But here is Jace Reawakened. There's a regular version. There is also a borderless version. In both versions, he's casting an illusion or coming out of an illusion where he was posing as Ashiok, which is a big story moment. But Dave, also this card itself is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, that we start off with, like, the start of the text there is sort of like the Sarah Avenger text, where, like, it's a 2-mana card, but it's not a card you're playing on turn 2. That just it felt like a fun place to try to play around. I mean, I can date myself a little bit with, like, I'm I guess infamous for helping design the original Tybalt. So, right, like, we've had some attempts at 2-mana planeswalkers, and that one didn't work out as well as it could have. But yeah, here, this is another take where, right, like, well, if it can't just come down and pose an immediate threat, like, there's some more gameplay there. And then I think this card came together. I was pretty excited to put, like, the plot mechanic on here. I think, like, it's actually pretty exciting that you're playing a 2-mana card that can plot a 3-mana card and then, like, later cast that for free. There's I don't know exactly where this card's at in power level, but it's doing a lot of pretty cool, exciting stuff. I mean, it's got kind of the standard, loot for the first ability, and the -6 is no joke in terms of what you're getting to do there.
All right, we're getting a bunch of questions. I'm gonna start with the first big one. Is, hey, does this mean we're moving back to more than one Planeswalker a set? No. So the story behind this card, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, this was originally part of the epilogue set, and when that was pushed into when the big score was moved into the main set, Jace was also added to the main set.
That is all correct. Yeah, it was planned for the big score, and then when all is said is done, we didn't have to slide around too many cards, but we did swap that with one other card. Just it felt, in terms of like the story, and even we saw today, right? Like the story, like kind of got to this point.
Yep.
By the time we're, talking today. So yeah, it felt like we should just put it in the main set, make sure it was like something that it felt like it really belonged in the main set once we like reconfigured everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So not a change to more than one Planeswalker per set. Just special circumstances for this set.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool card. Speaking of really cool, Matt, rules question that I've seen a few times. I have Leyline of Anticipation in play. Can I cast this on my opponent's second turn if I have 2 blue mana?
Yeah, if we bring up Jace's text again, I believe it says during your first, second, or third turn. So if you find some way to be able to cast it off turn, that first ability of Jace does not apply. So good job, you.
Yeah.
Jace will happily be cast on another player's first, second, or third turns of the game.
Absolutely. And then
or if you do it right, all 3. I don't know what that means, but go ahead.
Sure. And then also a question on that middle +1 ability that lets you plot a card. So if you're plotting a card using Jace's ability with that costs 3, you're never once paying mana for that card, correct?
Right, because the ability itself will exile the card and cause it to become plotted.
Yes.
And then on a future turn, when you cast it, you're doing it without paying its mana cost.
Yep.
Now, notably, that card that you cast, the spell you ultimately cast, might have additional costs. For example, it might be a spree card. Mm-hmm. In that case, you might have to pay those additional costs, but you're not paying the mana cost.
Gotcha. All right. Now, if you have more questions, we are out of time. But there is a ton of content going up on Daily MTG shortly.
So much content.
So much content, including a rules and mechanics article.
Oh, please read my article.
From Matt Tabak.
I spent literal minutes writing it.
But
it would behoove you to read it.
If you do have more questions, and I did see more questions about mechanics in chat, go check out that article. If you still have questions, tweet at us. We can probably help you out. And then the collecting article for collecting Outlaws of Thunder Junction is going to be your source for like, where is this card found? What are the odds of this happening in this type of pack? It'll tell you the makeup of play boosters and collector boosters, what each of the slots are, where the different treatments can be found. Also being updated today is the card image gallery, and a reminder that our card image gallery has a lot of those features too. So you can select, if you can look at a card, you can look at a treatment, it'll tell you what type of pack it's found in, and you can even pre-order stuff right from there. So that is our show for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We are going to be back next week with Dave again.
Yeah.
He's coming back. He's going to talk even more about the big score. And we're going to reveal a ton of cards from the big score and talk about that set as a whole. So definitely tune in next week. Otherwise, check out previews for Outlaws of Thunder Junction all this week and next week on dailymtg.com, on the internet at large, and everywhere you can learn about Magic. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.